Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday night, 27th of December, and I was going to talk tonight about something a little different. Um, have you ever thought about the unusual things that happen in Bible history that must have made people think and talk a lot? You know, there's a lot of things that come to my mind, but I think about in the Old Testament, the first time God showered manna down from heaven when they went out to collect the wafers off the ground. Can you imagine what the people must have thought? What is this going to taste like? They were hungry. They were wanting food. And God provided them manna. And then later on, they wanted meat, didn't they? And God showered down so much quail, they got sick of all the quail. And it says that a cloud of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day is what led them through the wilderness. And then, of course, we have the history of the children of Israel when they were in captivity, asking not to eat the king's meat. The person in charge was concerned. He didn't want them to look pale and frail. But he finally agreed to give them a time, and so he fed them pulse, and they ended up looking better than in all the rest of the people in captivity. And then, of course, we have the story of Samson and Delilah, and how Samson ended up the last of his life killing more Philistines than all the rest of his life. And God gave him the strength to bring down the columns of buildings on their heads. Then we go into the New Testament, we see, can you imagine what people thought at the wedding when Christ turned the water into wine? Can you imagine the gossip that happened after that? When people left the wedding and they had actually tasted the wine that Jesus had turned into wine from water. Can you imagine the gossip that went on? And all of the miracles that Jesus did, John says in the 21st chapter that if everything was written that Christ had done, the books couldn't contain it all while he was down here. But we have a lot of what he did, how he healed the man with the withered hand, how he caused the blind men to get back their sight, how he healed the 10 lepers, how he fed 5,000 with a few loaves of fishes and bread, how he caused the deaf to hear and the dumb to speak. All of these miracles that Christ did, and we have record of them, don't we? He even raised people back to life. We know the account of Lazarus. And we also know that He did a lot of things that were beyond the ability for a person to reason with, understand. How he just walked right in the midst of a crowd out of a building. They couldn't see where he went. How he ended up on another side of the island. How he came through doors after his resurrection. How he caused all of these fish to be caught by the fishermen after they'd fished all night. All of these things that were examples of the miracles that he had done. In the Old Testament, he told Moses to strike the rock and water came out. And then later he told him to speak to the rock, and Moses disobeyed and struck the rock. We see a lot of things in the Bible that are beyond the realm of our explanation as far as from just a rational standpoint. You know, a lot of people say the account in Ezekiel was just a story, a good story about the dry bones rising up and the sinews coming together. I don't believe it was just a story. You know, and so if you go to the book of Revelation, there's a lot of seemingly symbolism in the book of Revelation. But I think there's a lot more literal things in the book of Revelation than what we even realize, and one day we'll come to see that it was more truth there than what people have been willing to accept. You know, we're serving a powerful, mighty God who has all power in his hands. You know, when the disciples were on the sea and it was raging and tossing, and they thought they were going to die. And Christ spoke to the sea and said, "Peace, be still." And they said, "What is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" He speaks to the wind and the sea and they obey him. Remember the time that he spoke to the fig tree and it withered and dried up almost immediately? So there's many things that, you know, those in the evolutionary camp just cannot get their arms around when they are faced with what the Bible says about creation, that God created the world in 6 days. They can't accept it. They've got to make it be millions and millions and millions of years evolving from something that they can't explain. God is all powerful. He has all power over heaven and earth. The Bible tells us that in him we live and move and have our very being. There were so many things that are accounted for in the Bible that are just beyond the realm of our explanation. In the rational world, we could say, how could that ever happen? How could the 3 men be cast into a fiery furnace and they would come out of it and they couldn't even smell the smoke on their clothes? How could Daniel be cast in a lion's den of raging, hungry lions and God shut their mouth? You know, how could have God caused big fish to swallow up Jonah and he be in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights and then vomit him up on dry land and he lived through it? You know, how could God actually fold the Red Sea back and allow the Israelites to walk across on dry land. And then as soon as Pharaoh went in after them, he folded the sea over the top of them and killed them all. How could they walk around Jericho 7 times and blow trumpets and the whole walls fall down? You know, God is miraculous. He's powerful. And he hasn't changed. He's just as powerful as he's ever been. And he holds the world in his hands. And tonight we've relayed some of these miraculous things that God has demonstrated himself through history. You know, very miraculous things. How he cast out 7 devils out of Mary Magdalene. Remember, he cast so many devils out of that one man. He asked how many, and they said legions of devils was in that one man. You know, and so God is over all things, including the devils. It's good to know that we are serving a powerful, mighty, mighty God. And that's what's on my mind tonight. I want to conclude by singing this one song. And I hope you have a good Wednesday morning. And I hope that you'll always remember the power of God demonstrated throughout history. This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world, I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, his hands the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world, the battle is not done. Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one. Well, may the good Lord be with you this day is my prayer. God bless.